Alright, so after learning our real distinct root, real and repeated roots, and no real roots, right? The next thing we need to learn is about two graph intersecting. Okay, so they are the same thing, just that for the previous video that you have watched, you'll notice that if I bring attention to this, the x squared plus 2x minus 3 equal to 0. So if you encounter this type of equation, right, or the quadratic equation, this means that the graph will intersect with the x-axis right here. Okay, and if you look at the case number 2, okay, x squared plus 2x plus 1 equal to 0. This means that the graph and the x-axis also intersect. Okay, be it 2 point, 1 point, or no point at all. Okay, beside the graph and the x-axis intersecting, right, I can also have two graph intersecting. So of course, I will have a quadratic curve and a straight line graph. Okay, so for example, for this case number 1, so you'll notice that I have two graphs. The first is your so-called your quadratic graph. The second is your straight line graph. So if they intersect at 2 points, this means that we will have two answers. Okay, so example, just now from the first video, we have y equal to x squared. So this graph number 1. So graph number 2 is something like y equal to maybe 2x plus 1. So if I find a coordinate, if I want to find the 2 point of intersection, I must equate them together. Okay, so you will get something like x equal to maybe negative 0.4 or x equal to positive 2.43, something like that. So this means that these are the 2 points that they will intersect at. Okay, especially we are more interested in the x coordinate. We are not really interested in the y coordinate. Alright, okay, so this is where if I have 2 point intersecting, right, or two graph intersecting at 2 points, the b squared minus 4ac will be more than 0. Okay, what if the two graph, right, intersect only at 1 point? So if it only intersect at 1 point, the b squared minus 4ac will be equal to 0. Because remember, whatever that's inside the square root, if the whatever that's inside the square root is 0, right, I only will have one answer. And the one answer corresponds to where they intersect. Okay, then after that, if I have case number 3 where two graphs does not intersect, right, they can phrase it in do not meet or intersect, or they can phrase it in such a manner. Okay, it's the same thing. So the left hand side is your graph number 1, the right hand side is your graph number 2. So if they do not intersect, means that whatever that's inside your square root, b squared minus 4ac must be negative. Alright, so yeah, so this is the same thing as your the first video that you have watched. Okay, just that now is not so straightforward. Alright, so it corresponds to two graph intersecting now. Okay, alright, so maybe let's take a look at this example. So let's take a look at this example 2. Find the range of values of p. So same thing, they want us to form an inequality corresponds to p, for which the curve, so now we have graph number 1, right, the curve y equal to x squared minus px plus p squared does not meet with the line y equal to 2x minus 3p plus 3. Just take note that p is just any number, can be 1, can be 2. So this is the two graph is where I have a curve and I have a straight line. So they say, hey, I do not meet. Do not meet means I must go to the case 3. So b squared minus 4ac will be less than 0. Alright, so yeah, okay, so the next thing that I need to take note is that okay, so let me just go here. Alright. Okay, so let me just write down first. So I have two graphs, so y equal to x squared plus minus px plus p squared. So I say, hey, this graph does not meet with y equal to 2x minus 3p plus 3. So I have the graph number 1 and graph number 2. So first thing first, I also always write down the so-called the condition, b squared minus 4ac less than 0. Okay, so what is the additional thing I need to do for this type of questions as compared to example 1 is that I need to equate them together first. So what do I mean by equating them together? Means that I need to put this and this thing together. Alright, so it's something like simultaneous equation like that. So I need to form an expression or equation that is fully in terms of x. I cannot have any y inside. So x squared. So this is step number 2. So step number 1, step number 2. Okay, so x squared minus px plus p squared I equate with the 2x minus 3p plus 3. So the step number, okay, this is still step number 2. I move everything to the left hand side. I want to form an equation, right? So x squared minus px. Then after that, maybe I just put the x's together. Then plus p squared minus plus 3p. Okay, minus 3 equal to 0. Okay, so this is step number 2 done. Okay, step number 3 is to put down ABC, because I need to know my ABC in order to put inside my step number 1 inequality. Right? So step number 3 is to find your ABC. So A is 1. Okay, B okay, so B, you notice that I have is the coefficient of x, right? So to make things simple, maybe I manipulate my equation here. X squared plus minus p minus 2 bracket x. So now everything is good already. So the coefficient of x is this. Okay, let me just write down my c also. Plus p squared plus 3p minus 3 equal to 0. Okay, so my b is minus p, maybe I just put a bracket, minus p minus 2 bracket, then c is p squared plus 3p minus 3. Okay, so this is step number 3. Okay, now I put in the step number 4. So step number 4 is to put in your inequality. So that's why your b squared minus 4ac less than 0 is very important. That is, you want to form an inequality regarding your p, right? You need your step number 1. All right, so let's put down. So b squared minus b squared minus 4ac. So it's a rather difficult inequality to deal with. Less than 0. Okay, so now let's manipulate. So I'll just do a quick one. So I just expand the bracket. So p squared plus 4p plus 4. Alright, then after that, the next one is minus 4p squared minus 12p plus 12 less than 0. Okay, now it's time to do our manipulation, right? So p squared minus 4p squared, you'll get minus 3p squared. Right? Then after that, 4p minus 12p is minus 8p. So plus 4 plus 12 is plus 16, less than 0. Okay, so let's clean up this inequality before I do the number line. Right? So okay, so normally for me, right, I would like to get rid of any negative if I have a negative with my p squared. So I get rid of negative 3p squared plus 8p minus 16. So for this, right, the inequality must flip, become like more than 0. Okay, now we are almost done. So the last step is to solve the inequality. Right? Okay, so for the step number 5, first thing I want to solve this quadratic inequality. So either I must use method 1, the graph method, or the method 2. Okay, I'll show you both methods. So let's do my factorization first. 3p, p4. Okay. So yep. Okay, so I factorize already. 3p minus 4, p plus 4. More than 0, because I flipped already. Okay, so let's try to do our graph method. So if I solve for p, let's just say back to Sec 2 E-maths already. So if I just say, hey, I solve for p, but you'll give me a p value of -4 or 4/3. Okay, so I need these two numbers. So I put down -4 is here, and I put down 4/3 is here. Okay, so of course I draw something like graph. Okay, so I look at the inequality, right? It's more than 0. More than 0 means I'm looking at anything that is above the graph, which is right here. Right? So in order to fulfill this shaded region, my P must be less than -4. So if you look at this part, whatever that is the shaded region must be less than -4. So of course there's another counterpart is here. So or P is more than 4/3. Alright, so this is the graph method. Of course, let me show you the number line method. So number line method also same idea, just that I prefer to use the number line. So the this one is -4, this one is 4/3. So let's put down the sign first. So maybe I deal with this first. So anything, you can submit any number that is more than 4/3. Maybe I submit 2 into this equation. So let's submit 2. So when you submit 2 into this equation, you will get 3 times 4, 12. Then, okay, so it's definitely more than 0, which is positive. Then here will be negative, here will be positive. So so now we go back to the inequality. So you want more than 0, you want positive, right? So you move to the positive side. Okay. So the P value, the P inequality is P less than -4 or P P less than -4 or P more than 4/3. Alright, so you can see there is a 5-step process lah. Alright, so first thing first, always determine your step number 1. Step number 1 is to determine your B square minus 4. Is it less than 0? Is it equal to 0? Is it more than 0? So how do you determine step number 1 is really depends on the question. So if they say does not meet means is the case number 3, which is less than 0. Then the step number 2 is to equate them together. So this step number 2 is actually missing from the example 1. Example 1, I do not need to do this step number 2. So example 1, I just do step number 1 first, then I skip all the way to step number 3 already. So this is actually a additional step. Alright, so I go to step number 3, I determine A, B, C. Then step number 4, I put in the inequality. So this one is step number 3 and step number 1 combined together. And last but not least, step number 5. Step number 5, you need to solve for your quadratic inequality. So yeah, so that's it for our example.